treat in for you if you haven't been here before. We've got some terrific storytellers here. We will just ask that you do not go in and out to the snack bar during the stories. We will be having an intermission. So if everyone would just stay in their seats until the intermission, it will be a lot less distracting for both the audience and the storytellers. And here is our master of stories, Dan Cohen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back again for our 6th or 7th or 8th or whatever it is year. You might notice if you've been coming here year after year, I'm wearing a different coat this year. You know why that is? I couldn't get into the old one, and that's really scary, man. That's tough. I want to just say a word about Elsie Pantley, the wonderful woman who's a storyteller who started this whole event and got me involved in it and got the rest of us involved in it. And she really, her memory really deserves credit for what we've done and what has become a very popular annual event here. If you haven't been here before, I want to warn you about something. You know, there are all kinds of storytelling sessions. You get Happy the Pumpkin, and Casper the Friendly Ghost, and Gooey the Goblin. None of that. You're not going to get any of that stuff here. If you've got a weak stomach, you got a weak heart, you're scared, get out now. There are plenty of people out there waiting to get a seat from you. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to be a friendly evening. It is not going to be a friendly evening at all. See what I mean?
What the heck are you doing in my barn?
The old canaler, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, wait a minute, Sonny. I was out there. I tried to bury her again.
I've been trying to do that with you for years.
You know what? She crawls out of there. Got her false teeth this time. Next time I'm gonna have to kill her. Here, Sonny, take this.
Give me the teeth too.
They're hers. Well, I guess you people want to hear a story. I was thinking when I was coming down here, I don't know if you remember last year when I told you about those wonderful Schnellneckers that were grabbing the people off the canal. Well, I saw one of them TV shows that had what do you call it, roots on it. And I went back. And I studied where the Schnellneckers came from. Seems like there was a family. They were born in Scotland. Name was Shawnee Bean. Now, Shawnee Bean, he didn't particularly care to work. He didn't. He didn't like it. His father, his mother, sisters, and brothers, they all worked on the farm. But old Shawnee, no, not Shawnee. Shawnee didn't like that. He decided that maybe one time he'd just run away. But he needed somebody to run away with, and he met a wild woman, a girl, excuse me, fellas, a young girl to run away with. Well, he took that girl. They went out of Edinburgh, and they were about, maybe 30 miles. found a cave. It was a beautiful cave. You know why? Because you could run down and run into the cave, and the water would come up when high tide was there. Ah, I thought this was great. Well, old Shawnee, he decided that maybe he could go up and he would rob people that were riding down with their little horse carts and stuff and steal their money, and they could use it to live on. Well, it worked all right for a few years. They went on for about maybe 10, 15 years by doing this. Then all of a sudden, when the people started disappearing, they didn't know what to do. And they needed to eat. Well, Shawnee decided what they'd do would go out and grab somebody like you and him, cut them open, slit them up, and put them on the hooks. It'd be food. You'd have the legs, you'd have the arms, you'd have, you know. Ha ha ha. So, for almost 20 years, these Shawnee Beans went out, robbed, plundered, and I have to say they gutted and roasted the people they met. Now, when Shawnee got to be the age of about 60, he had maybe 30 or 40 children, if we can call them that, because they were all in the same clan. And they were living right out there out of Edinburgh. And King James VI decided that he was going to just rid the whole land of this. So he got his royal guard. They had horsemen. They had pikes. They had that newfangled thing called a fowler that shoots, throws big bullets out. George Chevery was probably one of the best shooters of that. Well, when they get down to the corner of the road that goes up to Edinburgh, everybody was quiet, hiding in the woods. They found old Shawnee and his relatives gutting out a woman that was about 30 years old. Because you see, in the cave that they had a place where they put the bodies, the bones, the clothes. The only reason they got caught, because the king's army happened on them. Well, they surrounded them. You know what happened? Well, they rounded them up. They took them back to Edinburgh. They looked through the caves first. And in the caves, they found not only the clothes, not only the jewelry, not only the knives, but they found a whole cave of bones. I'm talking legs, arms, knees, feet, teeth. It was terrible. King James V said, these people should be put away. So he said, the crime should fit the punishment. So he took all the little boys and all the little girls and all the women and made a huge bonfire. And he threw them in it. They all burned. And all the men cut his arm off, cut his leg off, let him bleed to death, let him lay there. But you know, they forgot something. In that cave, where all those bones were buried that I told you about, remember that? You remember that? There was a boy, and he was hidden underneath it. He just crawled underneath those bones and skeletons, and he laid there. Remember, I told you this was Scotland. Well, he came over here, and he started up one of them fast food companies. So the next time you go out to have a double beef burger with a special sauce, you can thank Shawnee. Well, I'm glad to come up to the barn anyway.
Told you it wasn't going to be friendly. Bob Padley, the old canaler. I have a little problem here. I expected to have another storyteller, but something happened. We've got this young fella here. To bring him in. Here. Yeah, come on. He just sort of wanted. He's kind of confused, and maybe you could do something with him. Maybe you can help him now. Yeah, you don't tell them. Maybe they can help.
I'm trying to tell you, as I've been trying to explain to this man.
Tell them, please. Them. Not
That I was coming down the road, just up the road, as I tried to explain to this man, and he forced me in here.
Tell them.
I came to the first house. I knocked on the door. I said, please help me. What do you want? I tried to explain to them as I'm about to explain to you. I said, go, you're crazy, leave. I said, please help me. Something has happened. The house doesn't look familiar. The road doesn't look familiar. Your clothes you're wearing doesn't look familiar. Something's wrong, please help me. Go, they said, leave. I wandered. I have a dizzy spell. I don't know if this had fallen from a rock or I don't know what it is. But I stumbled upon the light that's here, as I wanted to explain to this gentleman, as I am about to explain to you now. Several miles from here, a friend and I was at his house. And my vehicle had an electrical problem. He said, don't worry, you can get home. And he said, Ed, be careful. There's some hoodlums on the road forcing people off the road. I said, don't worry, I could make it home. And it was late at night and the moon was full. I got in my vehicle, and for what I could remember, I started down the road. And it was dark, and I got halfway, and my car went out. And I jammed on the brakes, didn't hit anything. I opened the hood, and I was fiddling with the wires in the dark. And luckily, I got the lights back on. And the engine turned back on again. And just then, a vehicle passed me by with bright lights. And I said, oh, where had they gotten such large lanterns? I got back in the vehicle, and as I was going down the road, another one came in front of me. Couldn't see the road. He passed by, and I said, darn, whoever they are have bright lights were blinding me off the road. I kept driving, hoping that I could make it way home. Another one got behind me, and I'm going, what is this? What is this? And another one came in front of me, and they were darting me. Well, I stopped, and I said, this is too much. This is too much. Well, they weren't there because I stopped and waited for them. So I proceeded down the road again. Here I am driving, and the vehicles came up upon me again. They were right behind me with the flashing lights I couldn't see. So I started to speed up, and I speed up. I knew where there was an airport, where I can get off the road. If these hoodlums were about to stay on the road, I would get off the road first. So I drove, and I drove, and I turned, and I got off the road, got out of the car, and shut the lights off. And sure enough, I saw the road from where I was, and the car passed by. I said, ha, he won't find me. So I walked away from the vehicle, and another one on the road came with another bright light. I said, whew, I got away from them. I shall wait here and let them pass. And I worked further down the airport, which is a dead airport, and then all of a sudden, a light came into the airport. I said, they found the entrance. So I tried to hide. And another one came in, and another one. And all of a sudden, they were approaching me. I said, these cars, they'll find me. And all of a sudden, they came upon me. I couldn't see what they were or what it was. I said, these kids, or whoever they are, were trying to blind me. And sure enough, they kept getting brighter and brighter, and I was running down the field, trying to get away. I saw in a distance a light. I said, another vehicle, I'll try to get to the vehicle and tell them it's me. And sure enough, the vehicles behind me kept getting closer and closer and closer. And all of a sudden, they kept coming and coming, and ah! And then I felt a gash on my head. And I woke up in my bed. It was only a dream. And then I looked around me, and I noticed that it wasn't my room. And I looked about me, there wasn't a window or a door. I got out of the bed, what appeared to look like a bed, and I went to the wall. I had a glaze to it. I looked about me, and I said, I can't be sleeping, I can't be. And I touched myself, I knocked on it, and had a strange sound to it. And then something was telling me, get back to the bed. And there was nobody there, and I said, stop playing games! Where are you? There wasn't a window or a door anywhere. It was all very shiny, like I've never seen before. And I was forced to go back to the bed. I got back on the bed, and something kept humming. And the humming became louder and louder. And I was afraid. I didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden, I fell back. And there I was, just a half a mile down the road, to the first house I went to. I said, please, let me tell you what happened. And they said, go, go, I don't want to hear it. So now I'm telling you this. But the thing is, as I approached this house, those vehicles out back, I've never seen them before. And the way you're all dressed, I've never seen such clothes before. I can't remember what happened. I don't. I can't. What day is it? What year is it? What year is it? Tell me, what year is it? Come on, tell me. 1988. 1988. 1988. This is all odd to me. I thought I was having a dream. But this is not a dream. I put two and two together. Those flashing lights weren't cars. It was a spaceship. That's what I think it was. It was a spaceship. That room that I was in, with no windows and no doors. Yes, that's what they did. They took me on a ride because this happened in 1913. That's why all of you don't look so familiar. And the roads don't look familiar. And the cars out back don't look familiar. Why did you tell me it was 1980? Why? Why? it'll teach you to sit up front. Well, to gather my nuggets in May, another story that I remember hitchhiking, several years back. I was going cross country, and as I was hitchhiking, it started to rain, but I thought I'd make quite a few miles in the first day, and I got a little further. But on my third day, it was late at night, and it was raining very hard. It was cold, and I was hungry. I was really shivering and saying, oh, one more day and several miles will make it. And sure enough, within the rain, I heard a tractor trailer just topped a ridge. I put out my thumb, and I smiled because I heard the air brakes come on. I run up to the cab, and sure enough, there was a man. He weighed about 210, I'd say, with his hand out, saying, come on up. I'm Big Joe, and this rig here is Phantom 309. So I climbed up into that rig. I said, thanks, mister. He shut the door, and off we went. I said, why do you call this rig Phantom 309? He says, well, there ain't a driver. Well, there ain't nobody that don't know the taillights of Big Joe and Phantom 309. So I sat down and got comfortable, and off he went. And he was telling me all his stories, and I was telling him all of mine. And we rode part of the night. And way up ahead, he said, I'm sorry, son, but I have to let you out. There was a truck stop up ahead, and he says, I have to keep going. So he tossed me a dime, and he said, now get a cup of coffee on me. So I got out of that, and I said, thanks, Joe, and he closed the door, and off he went. And in a mist, he disappeared. The taillights of that truck. Well, I went into this diner and sat down. The waiter came up to me and said, what'll you have, son? I said, well, this is all I have. I said, I'll have a cup of coffee, and it's on Big Joe. And everybody in the place turned around, and it became very quiet, and they all looked at me. And I turned around, and I said, did I say something wrong? He said, no, son, but let me tell you what happened about 10 years ago. He says, about 10 years ago, Big Joe and Phantom 309 were up on the ridge just way up ahead. It was a rainy afternoon, and Joe topped the hill, and there was a school bus, and there were a load of kids coming out. Well, they say Big Joe gave up his life to save those kids, and he jackknifed, and that was the end of Big Joe and Phantom 309. So people say around here, when the moon is holding water, and somebody like you come by, Big Joe give him a ride. So I want you to keep that dime, and the coffee's on the house, because this is the story of Big Joe, Phantom 309.
You know he's been gone since 1913, when coffee still cost a dime. Big Joe'd have to give you $1 nowadays. Stanley Cohen, ladies and gentlemen. I do want to make that clear. That was Stanley Cohen, Stan Cohen. I am Dan Cohen. He is the storyteller. I am not. When you want to have somebody tell stories, don't call me, call him. We are not related, perhaps in Paleolithic times or something like that, but we are not related. Please. We're now going to let you catch your breath for about 10 minutes, go out and spend a great deal of money. We need every penny we can possibly get. I'll ring the bell when it's time to come back.
I'm staying.
Yes, me again.
Back by popular demand, after a brief tour with the crowned heads of Europe. The old canaler, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in. Come on in. You don't look so good from the outside. It looks even worse in here. You're not listening.
You know, one time down here in what you call Wirksboro, there was a heck of a mansion. It was a nice mansion. I mean, as far as mansions goes. Had all kinds of big windows in it. It had all kinds of apple trees in the back. It had all kinds of fields on it. Nice mansion. But there was a girl that lived there. She wasn't very happy. You know why she wasn't very happy? Didn't think her mother and father liked her. So she wandered out one night. She wandered down the road. There was a man. Big knife. Grabbed a hold of her head, slit her throat. Left her laying there. All the law enforcement officers up in this area got on their horses and they decided they'd track her down. Whoever killed this little girl was going to pay the penalty. They'd take the rope and put it on his neck and... Well, they tried for 2-3 months. Then they found something. They decided the boot prints where they found the girl's body had an extra heavy heel on the left-hand side. In other words, the man had some kind of a dingus on his left foot. And every time he walked, he put a deeper impression. Well, they looked around, didn't come up with anything. There's a man named Johnson. He was up in this area. One of them New York City police people. Got interested in this little case. So he went down to that Port Jervis down there, and that time they didn't have any streets. All they had was those mud roads. You know, like where your cart runs through and it leaves the wheel tracks. And when you walk across the street, it leaves boot prints. Well, he was thinking about this. And he saw the same damn print. Who crossed the street? Well, he sat out there for maybe 5-6 days. He saw this man come across. He had the same boot mark. So he arrested him. Took him down there to that Port Jervis police station. Put him in there and said, "You're under arrest for murder." He looked at him and said, "Prove it." Can't do with the boot. Well, one of the fellas that was working there was named Schnellnecker. And he said, I know him. Oh, I gave him the boot. I ate the leg. Now, this is your vote. Who did it? Was it Schnellnecker? Well, let me hear yay or nay. Ah. Couldn't have been the other feller, could it? Well, by God, both of them came from Scotland. And I'd be a little weary if I ate in any place that served fast foods from Scotland. I will not mention the name. Good night.
After this, you're all invited to his house for dinner. Every year, I host this thing, and I've had a number of requests about, do I tell stories? My wife always has a request about that. She's not here this year, so I'm not going to take her request, and I am going to tell you something. Her request is shut up, but I do have a brief story for you. I don't have the drama that these other folks do. All I have for you is the truth. It's a true story. I heard it when I was living in France. Little cafe in left bank of Paris. The old Frenchman and I shared a bottle of absinthe, and he told me this story. He swore it was true, and he was a truthful man. I'm sure it was true. It was about this fellow from the provinces. His wife and son had died in an epidemic, and he was very heartbroken, and he came to Paris to try and forget his troubles. He knew no one. He wandered around the streets sort of aimlessly. Found himself on the Rue de Boulogne, walking down this street, and he saw a group of young fellows like himself standing by the side of the road, and they called him over, and went over to them, and they said, you see that woman down at the end of the street there? He looked, and there was a young woman standing at the end of the street. I said, look, would you do us a favor? Would you go over there and would you ask her when the Bordeaux diligence starts? Strange kind of a request. But he was alone, and he didn't know the customs of the city, and he thought, perhaps it's the right thing to do. And he went down the street, and he went up to this woman. He said, excuse me, ma'am, could you tell me when the Bordeaux diligence starts? And she hit him with her purse. And she began to scream for the police. God. The police came, and she's holding him by the throat. The policeman said, what happened here? And he's, and she said, you know what he did? You know what this man did? He asked me when the Bordeaux diligence starts. The policeman rears back, hits the man with his club, grabs him, drags him off to the magistrate's court, and he stands him up in front of the magistrate. And he says, do you know what this man did? He found this perfectly innocent young woman on the Rue de Boulogne, and he asked her when the Bordeaux diligence starts, and the magistrate said, throw him in jail. A week later, he was brought to trial. Very distinguished judge. What's the charge? The prosecuting attorney gets up and said, this man here, the defendant here, asked a perfectly innocent young woman when the Bordeaux diligence starts. The judge said, stop, that's enough. We don't need the trial. Send the jury home. The man is guilty, and he is sentenced to 10 years on Devil's Island. Now, Devil's Island was the worst prison in the world. A fever, swamp-infested island off the coast of South America where they would send absolutely the worst prisoners from France. And they would send them over in this terrible cattle boat. Our young friend was sent over on this boat. And there was a tradition in Devil's Island when a new boatload of prisoners arrived. The new men would come in front of the older prisoners, And they would get up and they would confess their crimes, and that's what happened. These new men got up and they would confess crimes of murder and rape, mutilation, and all the other prisoners would sit around saying, yes, yes, yes. I know, I understand, I was young once.